Hello again. What I'm going to do in this video is to talk you through uh, the extraordinary corruption that I sort of uncovered. In this instance, only in the context of our own case relating to the family courts and what I've described as this emotional sterilization of children to fit long-term care orders to trade children with private equity owned agencies, and why this has led to the police terror, police state terror that I was subject to on the 19th of November, led by um, Adam Lloyd of Northumbria Police Officer 812 at the behest of Rachel Hudson, who was the judge at the time. Now, firstly, there's the issue of what they call ABE, achieving best evidence. This is side time side counsel. Originally, what they wanted to do was to go down a police interview route. And they got quite agitated when I said, yes, I agree, that's exactly what should happen, because it would open it up to a higher threshold criteria and more people could be pulled in to be witnesses and so on, which are, in terms of the accident of the broken arm, which was spun as a my doing. We, for instance, could have then called in the consultants who treated elder daughter, everyone that saw her in the NHS who had trained to spot signs of abuse, and why they didn't suspect any abuse was there. And the simple reason is because it was Norca Breaks who rolled on her arm, and there was no other injuries on her body, despite the fact earlier statements had said I'd thrown her against bookshelves and picked her up and dropped her. Secondly, what they tried to do then, they were talking about like expert opinions. So, I sort of people who are medically trained to look at bone injuries. So I said, yes, great idea, good idea. It's exactly what I wanted to do. So then they, for the reason I've just said, so they backed off. Then they wanted some sort of triangle interview. Triangle is a very murky organisation. It fits this model of people breaking off from this sort of family court care system, setting up these murky sort of intermediaries, stroke evidence providers, privately owned by people who've come from the system. So it's anyway, yeah. Concerns with that was they were paying effectively. The local authorities were paying for it, and I think they were mentioning it was going to cost about £20,000. My only concern with that was, you've got the issuer pays model, like in finance. So in essence, if a local authority is going to pay that level of money, they're probably going to be sure that they're going to get the outcome that they want, bent or something like that. And I said, well, we just need to make sure this process is clean, independent, so on. They backpedaled and didn't want that. Then they went to this sort of achieving best evidence via a statement. Okay, so this statement, I want to refer what the issue with it and why Rachel Hudson's very, very one of the reasons why she's very, very rattled and why this police state action has occurred. So I will I'll edit names out, but I'll tell you what the base of the statement. This statement was approved by elder daughter on 16th of May 2022. There's no full stop, goes into another sentence. During a meeting with her solicitor and intermediary, won't name the intermediary at this stage, a signed copy will be provided in due course. Okay, course is not spelled right. So this is here. The final hearing was a few weeks after this. So you're looking at a girl coming up 15. So she was capable of signing this. Well-educated girl could have signed this. So that's odd. So why it had to be produced in a hearing as their best evidence unsigned is very, very suspicious. And this was raised at the time. But anyway, the judge uses this fundamentally as the best evidence to approve this long-term care order. This document has never been produced in signed format. Now, what's the significance of that, and why is Judge Hudson rattled by this? On the 19th of February, earlier this year, I received a call from elder daughter. I was working but away from the area at the time. She was in quite an upset state, and she was sat in my neighbour's house, actually. because she'd arrived at this property where I live, formerly her home, and there was nobody in. So I guess the neighbour had offered her some shelter. So she called me and said, I explained where I was. She said, please, can you come home? And I said, yes, I can. Because I was commuting, using public transport and a bike in combination, I said it would take some time, but also I alerted my wife. And fundamentally, what it was is we met in Newcastle on because neighbour had brought her into Newcastle, and she firstly met my wife and then me off the train. So we went for a meal in a public place, Granger Street, Newcastle. Fully public, fully open. We've got footage from that showing friendly nature of it, smiles, pictures, and so on and so forth. So no duress. If there isn't any duress, it wouldn't have spotted. Anyone could leave at any time. Now, she claimed that she'd never seen this document, never mind even signed it. So you can understand where we start to get very, very concerned here and suspicious. Then, wife, in a co-authored email, I didn't write it, she wrote it, but she put my name on it, and I knew. She wrote and raised these issues with the family court system. So then she received an email back from the family court system in April. And in essence, I'll probably publish this actually. I'll try and publish it and show it. In essence, it said the case had been closed. Judge wasn't prepared to comment. So your key evidence unsigned, despite coming with a undertaking that a signed copy would be produced in due course. Never mind the fact that there was that 2-week window of opportunity to get it signed. Case closed. So this is really when you see people now start to talk about concerns in the UK in terms of the unaccountability of agencies and judges and so on and so forth. It's prevalent in immigration and the issues we've got there. I'm not anti-immigration. I'm not racist. The reason why I got a head up on this is because of racism, which I'll come on to. But you've got unaccountable judges. No, they're never elected. So in terms of Hudson, who elected her? We don't know. To whom is she really accountable to? That's the problem we've got. And it's the same in immigration and other areas where you have no juries, behind closed doors, a lot of these things, judges that are bending law, the rule of law is not the rule of law, to suit certain outcomes. And this is another example of that. How can you have a situation where they just say, that's it? In the other channel, my other channel, Gary Stockdale 171, I've spoken about this deity of data. This expert says, judge says, scientist says, agency says, so on and so forth. They want to put finality in a process where they want to shut down the debate and censor it. And this is exactly what's happening here. The other very, very significant part of this, and this is the extreme error, another extreme error that Adam Lloyd and Rachel Hudson have made when they put in this pretext that I damaged her car, spray painted the car in January and February, of which they've got no evidence whatsoever. And I haven't done it. I would never touch anybody's property or in person, and never suggested I would. I believe she's engaged in corruption and racism. Yes, I do. As of South Tyneside Council, it's not just about her. This is prevalent across the whole industry. When the rape gang situation starts to unfold, you'll see the same business model that's corrupting this system, breaking up families, not repairing them, the profit motive from the private equity owned agencies that want these long-term cash flows. And Restore UK, which Rupert Lowe heads up, I have nothing to do with them. I'm interested in some of their comments, have made an observation that the family court system needs serious reform, and he's absolutely correct because of that. I believe he perhaps doesn't appreciate how corrupting the business model is, but I'm sure he'll come to that on his rape gang stuff. So the incident here is during this interview, and I've discussed it in my other videos, he it wasn't Lloyd, it was one of his colleagues, And he tried to press me, and he made a fundamental mistake, and it'll be in the recorded interview. He tried to say, because of this response from the court, saying case closed, judge won't comment, on all the things that I've just commented, that I vented my anger by spray painting and damaging her car, despite the fact April is after when these alleged incidents occurred. So you can see how they fabricated this to be able to engage in state terror, force their way into the property, and take devices, steal devices effectively, of which they're holding, knowing that's causing maximum psychological abuse and mental anguish on me and to a degree my wife, to try to punish us. So that's how that fits together. There are some other aspects here. Before I will take you on back to the two key questions which I've raised in relation to younger daughter. One, when they took her, half Polish girl, very proud of her Polish heritage, have said, took her away 3 weeks, weren't allowed to see her for 3 weeks, right before Christmas 2021. And they said to see your daughter, no Polish can be spoken. So they have her 3 weeks, set up this meeting, plenty of time for an interpreter. Nobody's allowed to speak Polish. Mother's not even allowed to say Happy Christmas, hello in Polish. Imagine the inhumanity of this. So when they accuse me of being aggressive and so on and so forth, I hate racism. This is an act of racism, indisputed. They had every opportunity. They put in place no safeguards to protect Polish heritage. So why would you do that if you were not trying to emotionally sterilize a child to detach her from her heritage and her parents? Why would you do that? Nobody has ever asked that question. Rachel Hudson was aware of that question and never compelled the local authority to answer it. The other one, which we'll go on to, is they now say no, she's no longer interested in her Polish heritage. Okay, which I've covered in my previous videos. We've asked them the question again. Rachel Hudson was aware of this question that's been asked them many times. If she's no longer interested in her Polish heritage, doesn't want to access the Polish language or any culture, why was it on the 3rd of December 2021 she went from being extremely enthusiastic, which we produced an abundance of evidence, to no longer being interested? South Tyneside Council, during the case, before, during, and after the case, have been asked that question repeatedly and refused to answer. So you can see where I'm concerned, why I'm so upset, and why raising these accounts of racism and corruption is causing so much, because they want these things behind closed doors. They do not want them out there because it exposes this corrupt business model, emotional sterilization, long-term care orders, trading with private equity-owned institutions. Now let's go back now. I want to cover one more thing. I want to cover this instance about the child's wish, because effectively what they say, the child's wish is paramount, which in some ways you would agree. But there's some very odd aspects to that. One, when you ask the question to the child, it's emotional abuse. But when they ask the question to the child, it's fine, even though they are against you in a case. So can you see my concern here? I hope you can. Let's look at our younger daughter's alleged, what they allege, and there's an inconsistency here, and so you'll understand my concern. Her alleged wishes, shall we say. So, on the 5th of May 2022, the social worker, who likely to have been Donna Grant, doesn't name her on this occasion, but she was named social worker, undertook a visit to see younger daughter. And she advised she had, this is a very crudely prepared document, by the way, quotation marks, made a decision. When asked what she meant and what her decision was, she said, quotation marks, no transcripts at all, of course, again, prepared by someone who's against you. who benefits from this model. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back home. Hyphen. By quotation marks here, she meant with the foster carers. Okay. Interesting. Because on these cases, when I take you through how these cases work, this will become a bit more apparent, and I'll develop your understanding. On these cases, there's something called a child guardian, who's supposed to represent the wishes of the child. It's very, very murky, and I'll explain that in another video. In this case, Kirsty Garcia Leitao, full lineage in the industry, Kafkas and all that stuff. But let's leave that for now. We'll come back to that. Now, on her visits, there's something very different. On the 24th of May, 2022. So, you're looking a few weeks after Grant's visit, who assumed to be Grant when she, expressed, I want to be here. Younger daughter expressed a desire to go home, wanted to return to her parents. Think about that. All this was raised, and Rachel Hudson had full access to this information, as did a whole range of legal professionals. I was litigant in person at the time because I could see the corruption. They bullied and made sure I didn't have access to information at the same points, the same time, which I'll come to. But she had full access to this, as did legal professionals. So nobody was able to ask why there was that that discrepancy. Then, strangely enough, right on the eve of the final hearing, the 30th of May, 2022, so a week later, child had changed her mind and wanted to stay. Another very odd case is actually in one of our meetings. It was in Exhibition Park in Newcastle. I got a small amount of time with Antoinette away from the contact workers, and I recorded a conversation between her and I, and she doesn't lie. She, in essence, said to me she didn't recall seeing the social worker, never mind being asked that question. And we provided this with evidence to the court. And you can imagine what they said. And there was another one as well, where she also claimed she'd never had that conversation. You imagine what she said? Because we'd asked it. It was emotional abuse. But when they asked it, it's perfectly legitimate. So you can see the pattern, I would hope. And isn't it strange that you've got a child here snatched away from her parents, no notice, never been out of her parents' care all that time, Polish heritage stripped, up until the 24th of May. So you're looking at, so from the 3rd of December 2021 to the 24th of May 2022, so over 6 months, she was still expressing a desire to come home. Imagine the psychological abuse she must have faced, relentlessly asking the same question. You want to go home, you want to go home, you want to go home, you don't, you want to stay, you want to stay, you want to stay. Imagine the psychological abuse she had to face to be bent at that very last point, the week before the final hearing. It's incredible. The UK is conducting mass psychological abuse of its children. And, where was the child's wish before? It's only the child's wish when the child says what they want to fit their business model. You consider that. What an horrendous system. So why am I angry? Why am I concerned? I hope you can see. These are facts. This is why I've been subject to state terror. I'll go on another interview about coordinated coercion, but this is why, fundamentally. And Rachel Hudson knew all of this. So I hope that makes sense. Speak to you soon. Bye.